Hey, it's your intimacy expert, Dr. Viviana Coles, and I'm excited to share the following real Ask Me Anything chat with someone who found me online. Going into our video chat, all I knew is that she was struggling to cope with her husband's erectile challenges. What you'll hear next is a barely edited for time, real conversation with a woman whose identity is kept confidential. I received expressed permission to share this conversation with others, and everyone involved understands that my recommendation should not substitute for or constitute as professional counseling. If you'd like an opportunity to ask me your relationship and intimacy related questions, DM the letters AMA for Ask Me Anything to Dr. Viviana on Instagram, and I'll send you the link to submit your question. Enjoy!
No, I'm so excited. I mean, I followed you on Married at First Sight, and I was always like, oh, I love the way she gives advice. And, it's not in a way where it feels like pressure. It's more like try to get comfortable with yourself and your partner to kind of make improvements. So I just happened to see the email, and I was like, this is something that has been, affecting my relationship for a while, and I feel like it's getting worse. So he wouldn't talk to any professional, but that's not going to stop me from talking to a professional.
So let's start with, what is your question?
So my question is, I guess it's around, I don't know if it's erectile dysfunction or if it's testosterone. I kind of really don't understand how it affects a man. And the issue that I've been having is that my husband is actually more sexual than I am. And so it's weird because he looks for it more than I do. And I'm just kind of like, whatever. But then when I am in the mood and then we start, for some reason it just stops. And I kind of keep wondering, is it something that I'm doing? Like, am I like turning you off for all of a sudden to just nothing, just move forward? And it's just discouraging because he kind of won't look for me for intimacy, and then I don't look for him for intimacy because I think we're both thinking that it's going to start and it's not going to get to, a climax part. And so I'm just kind of frustrated because I kind of feel like he might be uncomfortable talking about it. I know that he's been working on getting like testosterone shots or whatever he needs to do, but he won't really tell me like what's going on. So then when we get to that point where we are intimate, and then all of a sudden it just stops, like literally in the middle, and I'm just kind of left like, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. Okay. So I already have kind of a list of questions in my head to ask you. Let's start with, when you say we're getting sexual, what does that entail? If you can give me as many details as possible about what getting sexual between you and your husband looks like, that would be helpful.
Okay, well, like the kids are in bed. We have like, we have 2 adult children and 2 children under 18. And so the 2 adult children are out the house. We just have the 2 little ones, like teenagers, 14 and 17. They're in bed, they're asleep. We're in our room. We both taking a shower. Sometimes I'll light candles, and we like to have the TV on just for like a little light, I guess. And then, we're kissing, we're like all over each other. And then, we could start getting intimate, and
When you say we're all over each other, what does that
I'm on
include?
top of him, or he's on top of me, or I'm straddling him.
Okay. And you're using hands and you're
We're touching
touching.
each other, we're kissing each other, we're like really, really turned on, excited. Like he could be hard, I'm wet, and then all of a sudden he'll just get soft.
And this is before he enters you or penetrates you?
Yes.
Okay. So you're making out, you're seemingly very excited, both of you. You're looking forward to whatever's going to happen. And then you notice that he has lost his erection. He'll get an erection and then he'll lose it.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And when do you first realize that the erection is there? Is it because he's pressing it up against a part of your body? Is it because you're using your hands? Is it because he has it in his hands and he's showing you? How do
So
you
what
know?
I've noticed is that it's weird because I don't know if he feels like he's going to get soft, so then he'll go down on me. And then after he goes down on me, I'm excited for like penetration. And that's when I notice that he'll say, "Oh, I'm not ready."
Okay, so you're noticing maybe that there's a pattern, or at least there's a coincidence that if his penis is soft, he'll go down on you to keep kind of things and keep the stimulation going for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then for you, that is kind of the appetizer, not necessarily the
Exactly.
entree, because now you're looking forward to it. Now, when he's going down on you, what's happening as far as stimulation? When I say stimulation, I mean any sort of touching, mainly touching, any sort of touching his body, kissing, touching his penis, whether it's erect or not. Is there any sort of stimulation going on for his body?
Um, Usually, I mean, I know that his love language is physical touch. So I'm constantly trying to like, grab him, touch him, like rub his arms, like if I feel like I try to, if anything, try to like reciprocate what he's doing. So it's like if he's touching me, like I'll start touching him.
Now, when you say love language, and I'm sorry to cut you off, um, but I need details. So, when you say his love language, now love languages are about love. They are about emotional intimacy, and typically, when you're speaking someone's love language, yes, of course, that can happen when you're experiencing physical intimacy, but it's usually something that's reserved for outside of sexual experiences. So just because someone loves physical touch, they can enjoy physical touch in the bedroom, but outside of the bedroom with love, that is not sexual touch. So are you saying that he loves physical touch as a form of affection, or physical touch within the sexual experience?
both.
Okay,
Both,
both.
yeah,
Got it.
both.
So
Because
you
even
try
if
to
we're
reciprocate.
driving, he likes for me to like put my hand on his leg or rub the back of his neck. He really does. Like I can tell him I love him all day long, but if I put my hand on his kneecap, he's like, "Oh my gosh, she loves me," right? And so even last night when I was laying on him, I put my hand under his shirt and I started rubbing his chest, and he said, "Thank you." And so I'm like,
Now,
okay, he.
so then you can tell the difference between when you're touching him for sexual or sensual purposes and when you're touching him from a loving, affectionate
Mhm,
place.
mhm.
And it's not like every time you touch him, he's going to get aroused.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So you are reciprocating, let's say in the bedroom, you're reciprocating his touch and whatever he's doing. Does he ever try to touch himself to maintain stimulation when you can't?
I want to say yes. I do feel like if he's going down on me, he'll, reach down and grab between his legs and touch
Okay.
his penis to try to, I don't know if he's trying to stay erect or what, but then,
Probably trying to stay erect and probably trying to stay aroused, and because it feels good, right? And so I think yes, he's probably trying to do that. Not so much like in a clinical standpoint, like
right,
he's like, oh gosh, I got to stimulate myself so I can keep my erection.
right, right.
Although it's probably gotten to that point, and we can talk about that in just a bit. So when he's going down on you, are you reaching orgasm, or is it part of foreplay for you?
I'm reaching orgasm.
Okay. And once you reach orgasm, is he or are you saying, I want penetration? Obviously not in those words, I would hope, but that's not very sexy.
Right.
Who's kind of offering that up?
Well, I feel like, I don't want to say that is the norm, but I feel like I feel like he knows that I like when he goes down on me, so he'll do it. But then I like to either like let him have sex from behind, or I'll climb on top of him and get on top. And that's usually, not usually, but that's something that we will do. So, and he knows that for me, like I'd rather feel him inside of me. Like I'd rather have that. And so that's the part I think that's frustrating, is because I think he's looking at it like, okay, I want to make sure that she's satisfied. So let me do this for her. But then I'm like, well, I kind of wanted more. And then I want you to feel satisfied. So then I feel like I'm not reciprocating. And then at the end, it's just really frustrating because I'm just like, I'm asking him, like, honey, what happened? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, is there something you want me to do? Or like, what can I do? And he's like, oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And then he'll just go to the restroom and come back. And then he'll just grab me and then like to tell me like, okay, it's over. He'll just like hold me and then we just go to sleep. And then I'm
Okay.
kind of like, that's not really how I wanted the night to go.
So there's a bit of disappointment that happens if he's not able to penetrate you. Now, is there the expectation, do you have the expectation that if he penetrates you, that it needs to lead to his ejaculation or orgasm?
Not really. I feel like that's how it would go all the way to ejaculation for him if we did do that. But there's been times where it didn't get to that for whatever reason, and he said that he said he was okay with it.
You believe that if he was to be able to penetrate you with a sufficient erection, that it would lead to ejaculation and orgasm.
Yes.
Has he ever experienced that you know of, or that he's told you, or that you've seen, that he's been able to orgasm without an erection?
No.
No. Okay. That is a thing. It is possible. So some men who lose the ability to get an erection are able to then figure out how to orgasm and experience that pleasure and that peak, the climax, without actually having to ejaculate.
Okay.
So I just wanted to ask in case you're like, oh yeah, no, he totally does that. But that's not the case that you know
I
of.
feel like it's a turn off for me because I get excited. I get more excited if he's hard and erect. So when he loses the erection and gets soft, that's a complete turn off for me because I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. I don't know if I'm turning him off. I don't know if I'm not turning him on. Like, I don't know why that keeps happening.
It creates such a level, like a sense of insecurity and doubt, that then you turn it personally. Let's
Right.
dive into that a little bit. It makes sense, of course, that you might say, oh, am I doing something wrong?
Mhm.
Especially, the reason that I think it's especially likely that you would think that way is because he does seek you out, and he seeks out sex with you, it sounds like, regularly. I don't know if it's often or whatever, but regularly. So we know he likes it. We know he enjoys it. It sounds that way, right? Unless you think he's doing that solely because you demand it. Have you told him my expectation is that we have sex so, often, every week, every month?
No, I feel like this has been a problem for such a long time. And I just remember it was one time pretty recently where we were, both, you know, excited. We were like having sex in different positions. Like I was on top, he was on top, he was behind me. And it was weird because he was almost trying to stop himself
From
from
ejaculating, yeah.
ejaculating. And he walked away. And I'm like, where are you going?
And
And
when was that?
that was probably about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Weeks? Okay. Um, a couple questions about that. Right? There's so much here. There's a lot of information. And if this was like ongoing therapy, we'd get to kind of spread it out, but I want to get as much as we can today. So, um, is that the norm? Was that the norm, and then all of a sudden he started more regularly losing his erections, or was this an anomaly? You're like, where did this guy come from?
So I feel like him losing the erection has been going on for a long time. And it's not every time, but it's very often. But it was
Okay.
weird that I'm like, okay, you're still hard. We're both still excited. Like, why are you stopping? That's the part that I didn't understand because I was like, why are you like? And he kept saying, I'm not. I don't want to come yet. I don't want to come yet. So I'm just like,
He was really enjoying himself.
yeah. But then I'm like, why? So then he like went to the restroom, and then he came back, and I was like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then nothing.
So he did not continue having his erection after the restroom. Okay. Okay. Very interesting. Do you know if he's taking any medications?
I do know he's very, very private. And so, like, it's weird because I'm like, okay, we've been together for like 22 years. We've been married for 18. I feel like we're pretty open with each other, but he feels like he doesn't want me to be worried or concerned about his health or what's going on in his life, so he doesn't really tell me anything. I do know that he has gone to the doctor to talk about like his testosterone. I think that he's doing either shots or, and then I know he's trying to lose weight because he's a big guy, and so he's trying to lose weight, and so I think sometimes he feels that I'm not physically attracted to him, and so I keep telling him like, I'm like reminding him like when I met you, you didn't have a six pack. Like I don't know why you think, like 20 years later, I'm like not interested. Like that doesn't make any sense. But I told him, I said, for me, my concern is obviously your health, but you're not, like obese or anything like that. But I just feel like like I said, he's going to be 50. And I think he's looking at like, he wants to be like more fit and maybe more muscular or more cut up. And I'm like, that's not even what I don't want that. I don't like that. That's not what I'm looking for, but I kind of feel like sometimes maybe he feels like maybe his body is not what I'm attracted to, but I've never said anything to make him, I don't know where that came from because it didn't come from me.
Right. So going back to something that you said earlier is that you tend to take it personally when you're disappointed that he loses his erection. Has there ever been a time where you've said something about it in a very like harsh way? Have you ever accused him of anything? Anything like that?
No, no,
Good.
no.
That's good. Okay, so
I feel bad. I
um,
feel bad. I feel bad in the end. Like it's almost like I feel bad for him because I feel like that could affect him mentally. Because maybe he's
it's
thinking, oh,
piling on. It's
yeah,
piling on. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And then, as far as what you think, you've had the thought, "Oh, did I do something wrong?" And that's not just like a one-time thing. What could you possibly be doing wrong? If you really take a look at something at this, what could you possibly be doing wrong?
I mean, even if I try to go down on him, he won't get hard. And so
Okay.
then I'm just like, okay, I don't know what else to do because I feel like I'm doing everything he likes or everything he would want or everything that has worked in the past. And it's like not, and I don't know if it's almost like, not that he's desensitized, but sometimes like if I try to grab his penis, he's like, grab it harder. He's like, you're not going to break it. He'll say like, grab it harder, be a little bit more like not forceful, but just hold it harder because if I'm too gentle or something. And so then I'm like, I feel like I'm taking all of his instruction and applying it, and it's still not working.
Okay. I'm going to give you something to ask him and something to recommend for him. And I'll ask you to write it down just because we're going to continue talking about a few other things and I don't want to
Okay,
forget this.
I'm ready.
You mentioned something about the way that he has asked you to hold and grip his penis.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of call that death grip, okay?
Yeah.
So the death grip is exactly what you think it is. It's when a man tends to hold his penis very tightly, especially when he's masturbating. Okay, now we have to remember most men, not all men, but especially men here in the US, are socialized to begin masturbating, touching themselves, exploring themselves, whether it's private or not, whether they joke about it or they're very private about it, at around 9 to 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just say 11.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that they start to have a regular sex partner, let's just assume that's going to happen maybe at 18, 19, 20, 22. Okay. So that's already a long time of having alone time with their bodies. During that time, a lot of men train their bodies to respond to whatever it is that they're doing. So some of the things that I tend to treat a lot in my office is the death grip. They get used to a very tight grip, which, I mean, look, we can do some things, but we can't comfortably and pleasurably have that death grip using our vaginas, okay? So we combat the death grip. The other thing that we tend to combat is the quickness. A lot of men, because they're socialized to keep things private and their families aren't like, hey, you know, go find some time, take your me time to go masturbate. They usually masturbate either very quickly in bed or very quickly in the shower. And when that tends to happen over years, maybe morning and night, maybe, you know, once every other few days or whatever, but typically they're not replicating what would be happening with a partner. So that happens. The other thing is that some men are very visually stimulated through pornography, and again, doing this in hiding, so they have to quickly imagine something, have it translate mind-body connection, create that arousal, go through the sexual response cycle. There are lots of issues that pop up for a lot of men, and therefore their partners, as a result of these practices. Okay, I've actually been writing a book on this on and off. I say writing, but it's on and off for the past 18 years because it's something that I see so often. The way that you have a relationship with your own sexuality and the way that you train your body to respond is so impactful on the experiences you're going to have with a partner. And I think what you might be experiencing, just from the little that you've told me so far, is the result of what can happen when someone trains their body to react and to respond only to the death grip.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, though, is that my husband said that he can't masturbate. He said that he just, he told me, like, I don't know, I'm, you know, just, I mean, like I said, in the 2 decades that we've known each other, if masturbation ever came up, like if we're watching a movie and they're showing a kid doing it or an adult, he always says, like, I can't do that. Like, he doesn't feel like he can, I guess, you know, arouse himself to the point of ejaculation. I don't know, but he doesn't like strip clubs. As far as I know, he doesn't watch pornography. So that's why I'm just kind of like, you know, for me, the visual part, I could feel like I can relate because he likes the way my body looks, especially my butt. So he'll always ask me, can I see your butt? So even in bed, I'll just turn around real fast because I'm like, if he could just see my butt,
that's the light switch.
Yeah, that'll get him turned on. So let me just do whatever. And even just walking around the house or I'm in the shower, he'll always say, I just want to see your butt. I just want to see your butt. So I've noticed that when we're in bed, that will turn him on. And so that's the visual part that I could, you know, understand. But the masturbation part, he always says that he doesn't masturbate. He said that he could never like do it, I guess maybe when he was younger he would start, but it wouldn't, like, nothing would come of it, so he just wouldn't do it.
That's really interesting, and of course I have a ton more questions that maybe only he would be able to answer, but I would definitely encourage him to talk to either his trusted doctor or a sex therapist, because we don't know what we don't know. So it could be that he has some internalized shame about it. It could be that he doesn't realize what he does for masturbation still considers masturbation. Like, there are a lot of men who have nocturnal emissions or wet dreams.
I know he's had that.
And that tends to happen, you know, they have a really sexy dream, you know, and it's like a lot of that more latent sexual tension comes out when they're sleeping and they're very relaxed. So yeah, I definitely have more questions for him, unfortunately, but I would maybe ask him, because some men, especially men who are in relationships, feel like they should not have to
Right,
masturbate.
right,
It's
right,
almost like well, if I'm in a relationship, then I'm supposed to have sex with my partner, or they're supposed to have sex with me. So, I'm not going to masturbate because it
right,
almost feels like that's beneath me, or that makes me feel like a teenager, or that's a turn off.
right, right.
That's possible. The other thing is that I don't think he's lying to you, but I think at some point he made that decision.
Right.
I'm just not going to do this. And
Mhm,
sometimes, again, I have no idea, but sometimes that happens after a period of time where maybe they overdo it, where
mhm,
they're like, oh my gosh, I'm totally thinking about sex all the time.
mhm,
I'm masturbating too much. I'm not able to sleep without masturbating. And then they're
mhm,
like, I want to take back control. I want to have a more manageable experience.
mhm,
I need to back off. And they make that decision.
mhm.
Now, again, it could be all sorts of things, but the death grip thing, there could be a desensitization that has happened. Has he ever
Mhm.
had any sort of trauma to his penis? Anything like that?
Not that I know of, no. Mhm.
Okay. Does he, this is getting personal, does he wear underwear? As if we haven't already talked about a lot of personal stuff, but does he wear underwear underneath his pants?
Um, no, no, because he'll sleep in like pajama pants.
Okay, because some men experience a lot of chafing, like they experience a lot of stimulation throughout the day because they're not wearing underwear. I don't mean like what type of underwear. I just mean having
Mhm.
something between them and
I
their
do
pants,
feel
or
like
them and their pants.
he does have, that is an issue because he's in law enforcement. And so he wears like a uniform and sometimes he's sweating and he has like a vest on and he's like, either running up and down the stairs or like, he's just always moving. So I know that he has had to like either put some kind of cream or powder or lotion in his
Hmm.
underwear to prevent like
Yes.
chafing. So I know
Good.
that that's
Yeah.
something that,
Okay.
and he's always like, oh, I have to wear this type of underwear because I don't want, he'll wear boxer briefs so that they don't ride up and it has to have like
Yep.
a little pocket for his penis
Hmm.
so that it doesn't like go
Flop
anywhere.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get uncomfortable. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So he's mindful of that. Is there anything else that he has said to you about what his preferences are, either during sex or maybe during foreplay, or maybe he said it in another situation altogether?
One thing that he has, it's funny because we've talked about this and I don't want to say that I'm a prude, but I'm definitely not as sexual as he is. Like I don't look for it, I don't expect it. If it doesn't happen, I'm not disappointed about it. I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. But he is like a very sexual person. He's, almost to the point where like sometimes he's like vulgar and I'm just like, oh, like don't talk like that. Like, and he wants me to like sext him, I guess, like text him sexy stuff. He likes when I send him pictures of myself in
Mhm,
underwear, like
mhm,
he tells me what he wants. And he's like, you know, he'll say, I've heard him say, you don't show me any attention all day, like when he comes home from work. And then at night, I expect him, I guess, to perform. And so he feels like I have to. So I'll text him in the morning, like, oh, honey, maybe you could take a shower with me tonight. Honey, maybe we can, so I try to like, I send him pictures of myself in underwear. Like, I'll send like sexy jokes, send pictures of me eating a banana, like anything to like kind of get him thinking, like, oh, okay, we might fool around tonight. But it's weird because I do all those things and he still doesn't, like I told him yesterday, I was like, oh, maybe you could take a shower with me. And he's like, yeah, okay. So I took a shower and I'm watching him like walk back from our bedroom, and our bathroom there's no wall. And he's just walking back and forth. And I'm like, okay, am I supposed to say, hello, I'm in the shower. Like, do you want to get in? And so then he just ended up, I got out the shower, then he gets in the shower, and then he gets in the bed, he kisses me goodnight, and then And I'm just like, that's weird. Because I'm like, I feel like he tells me, okay, I need you to be verbal about it. So then I'm verbal. I'll say things blunt like, oh, are you gonna hit it tonight? Like I'll say whatever, so that way there's no more hints or him trying to figure it out. I feel like I'm very straightforward, and it's still not registering. And so I feel he has even said that sometimes he talks himself out of it, because I think that night that he said, oh, I'm not ready to come yet, and he walked away, I think he was mad at himself, because then he's like, okay, I wasn't satisfied and he wasn't satisfied, and then we both went to sleep unsatisfied because he did that.
So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like, first and foremost, I would highly recommend that y'all talk to someone about this. I really do, because
He won't do it.
it it
He
is
won't do it.
it's complex, but I think, I mean, there are questions that I have about testosterone. I'm not a medical doctor, so I will not go there, but I will tell you, it sounds like he's doing everything that he can to stimulate his brain, which is
Mhm.
super important, especially when you're trying to sustain an erection and maintain it. But what he doesn't realize is that in doing that, he's he's also stimulating you and
Mhm.
your brain, and you have healthy functioning.
Mhm.
So it's like y'all are both on the same, right next to each other on this
Right.
race, but then he backs off and you keep going, and you're like,
Right.
what's going on?
Right.
And
Exactly.
imagine if, let's say, you were just having fun and you were racing someone, and all of a sudden the car stops and you
Right.
keep going. Guess what? You're going to circle around and you're going to come
Mhm.
back and be like, is everything okay? What's going
Right.
on? And they're like, yeah, everything's fine. You
Right.
would not be okay with that answer.
Yeah, that's what he says. I'm like, are you okay? Like, is something wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Because it's weird that it's so all of a sudden. I'm just like, wow, like you were hard as a rock like 30 seconds ago, and then all of a sudden he's so soft, and then I'm trying to get him back hard again, and it just feels like it's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Something is going on, probably with his thought process, and now he's got performance anxiety, because there's been several times now that you can say this isn't working, and then because he's not willing to talk about it, it just stays in here, and it's just a movie that's replaying and replaying and
Right,
replaying.
right.
I would recommend as well that, on top of him maybe asking him, like, hey, when and if you ever masturbate, do you think your body's used to a really tight grip?
Hmm.
If so, do you think maybe you could loosen that grip a little bit and see if you can retrain your body? Again, things that he normally wouldn't think about doing, but if he was in sex therapy, he might.
Right.
Um, and then the second thing would be to ask him and give him that analogy that I just gave you, that
Hmm.
metaphor of, like,
Hmm.
imagine that we are racing, and this is what it feels like with sex. We're both
Yeah.
excited, we're going to race, we're right alongside each other, we're
Right.
looking at each other, ooh, I'm going to get you, I'm going to
Yeah.
get you, and then all of a sudden your car stops, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that the engine stalled out. I don't know if you're sick. I don't know if you took your brake, if you actually pressed the brakes on purpose, or if something broke. And then when I come back around to ask you, and you just tell me, oh yeah, no, everything's fine,
Yeah.
I'm left to try to figure out, was it the engine? Did he get distracted? Did he get scared?
Hmm.
You know, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah. It's hard
I
because I what's interesting is that, because I feel like it's I'm not that you're like, as you're talking, I'm like thinking about it. The whole thing about the death grip is interesting, because I feel like now he's when he goes down on me, he's so rough, so fast. I don't feel anything. And I'm like, that's too hard, or like you're pressing too hard, or you're moving too fast. I'm like, now I'm numb, and I feel like it's almost like he's such in a hurry to like turn me on or have me have an orgasm, like is and I'm just like, slow down, like why are you like, trying to rush? So at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if he's thinking, let me hurry up and get her turned on, because I'm only going to be hard for so long, but so I don't really know. And then when I ask him, I get nothing. I'm like, did I do something? He's like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, no, it's not you. Don't worry about it. Like, everything's fine. And I'm just like, it's not fine though, because then I don't look forward to sex because I'm like, I don't want to even start because he might not even finish. And then he's not, I don't know if he's not looking for sex from me because he's like, Sabrina doesn't ever want to do it anyway. So it's like I don't want to like go look for it and then get disappointed. But it's been happening so often, and I'm just like, I really. That's why, like I said, when the opportunity came up for me to talk to you, I was like, you know what, this is my chance to try to find out like what, like, is there anything I can do, or should I just let him keep moving forward with like talking to his doctor, doing the.
I think him talking to the doctor, first of all, I think him talking to the doctor, we're assuming that he's talking to the doctor about the thing that matters to you, which is his potential erectile dysfunction, right? That's what we're assuming. I actually, again, I don't know, but I actually think he's talking to him about desire. And I think he's talking to him about, because with like testosterone and all that, that's usually linked more to desire than to the functioning piece. But that could be a piece of the puzzle, right? Again, there's could be so many different factors going on. Do you think it's possible that maybe he took a pill that time, that he just kept going and going and then was like, and was able to stay hard? Or do you think there was something else that he did?
So I want to say that I have found pills somewhere. I don't know. It was probably years ago. So I don't know if it was Viagra or if it was another type of, pill. But I know he's been taking a lot more prescriptions in the past 12 months than he has taken in the whole 22
But he
years.
won't tell you what they are?
I've looked them up, and I know that he's like, Adepex is for weight loss, so he's doing a lot of like test. I know he's going to like I know his medical doctor gave him a referral to like a men's health specialist place where he has to get a shot every week. I don't know if he's doing like B12 and then he has to get his blood drawn, test his testosterone and all that. So I know he's doing that. So part of me is like, well, maybe because of all that's going on, it's why. I don't know. I wouldn't think that it would affect his health in a way where it would stop him from performing. I would think that all of this would help him to perform even better. And so I don't know.
There's a big assumption there, right, that you're assuming if he's going to the doctor and he has this problem, he must be working on it. I would love for you to get confirmation of that. I think y'all are, I'm sorry, I didn't ask how old you are. How old
45.
Okay. So you're starting to enter this time of your life where you will start to experience some aging, right? And not that it's not happening all the time, but it might be a little bit more obvious. And I would love for y'all to establish open communication about your health issues as a couple. This sounds like you're in it, like you're in this forever, and to not know why he's going to the doctor but have to assume it. I feel like there's something there that if you don't demand and start to be like, hey, we need to be open about this as your wife, I really care about you, and I want me to be able to share things with you and not feel like, well, he doesn't share that with me, so I'm not going to share it with him.
I tell him everything.
You don't seem like the kind of person that's like
I tell
that,
him
right?
all of my appointments, I'm like, I have acupuncture, I have this, like I'm always telling him, but he won't like tell me, and he feels like it's almost like he's saying it's my problem, I'll deal with it. But I do kind of say, like, you know what, whatever it is that's going on with you, like, it's affecting me, even though you might not think it does. But
again, going back to that like racing analogy, I think if you were to tell him, what if it was the other way around? What if we were racing and all of a sudden I stopped and you came back and said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
How would you feel? And how how left out and excluded would you feel, and how maybe worried would you feel, especially if it happened multiple times? You know, even if you were to say, you know what, I'm not really sure what happened. I'm going to have to go and like try to look at things and see, because I'm not really sure. It just happened. I don't have any answers for you. That would be more helpful than just a, no, it's not you. I'm okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, okay, sure, it's not me. At least, yeah, maybe I can believe that it's not me, but that doesn't change the fact that we're in this together.
Yeah, and I've told him too that, for me, sex, I mean, I don't know, because I lost my virginity so young. I'm like, sex is like not a big deal to me. I'm just like, it's almost like I'm like been there, done that kind of thing. So like when he touches me sometimes, I don't get sexually aroused. Like when he touches my clit or anything, like I don't feel anything. And so I'm like, you're like rubbing on me and I'm not getting any sensation from it. And I told him, I said, maybe I need to, go see a sex therapist, or maybe I need to take, is there a pill for me to increase my libido? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm trying. Like I tell him, I try to buy sexy underwear. Like, I keep telling him, like, I try to do all these things to make me feel sexy, to like look sexy. Like I try to do all these things. And then I feel like when I do my part of whatever it is he's asking for, even though to me it does, not that it makes me uncomfortable, but it is taking me outside of what I would normally do. I'm like, you know what, I'm doing these things because this is what my husband asked of me, so let me do that. And then I'm like, okay, I've done all these things that you've asked of me, and now the issue of you not staying hard is coming up. Like, I don't know what to do now.
So a couple things about that. I mean, being in a very demanding job, like you've mentioned that he has, and to an extent a very hyper masculine job, it can be very difficult, especially because I've had a lot of clients in those types of positions, and it can be very difficult for them to admit that there's anything going on in general, much less so when it comes to in the bedroom.
Right.
But ultimately what ends up helping them is to be able to openly, and like vulnerability of sharing, like, hey, this is what's going on, because men don't realize they're not robots.
Right.
Women, we're very good from an early age of understanding like hormones, stress, anxiety. Like we're very conscious of the impact that those things can have on us from a very early age. Men are like, oh no, this, A to Z, I know how to get there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they start like around M, they're like, well, there's an issue there. Okay, well, that's okay, I'll just ignore it.
Right.
And it's not until things are like really bad that they even begin to ask. And guess what they do? They typically go to a medical doctor, which is a good thing because we want to rule any of that out. But they don't ever work on their brains, which is the largest sex organ. So it could be that he is just very stressed in general, and that may have started the issues with losing his erection, is just not knowing how to deal with stress. And then the performance anxiety came from not being able to sustain his erection.
Right.
Then it gets even worse, because then he starts realizing, oh my gosh, she thinks that this could be because of her. Well, there's even more pressure to make sure that that doesn't happen, because, oh my gosh, like I would hate for her to think that it's something that she's doing. Again, assuming that it actually, like, we don't know. Again, the death grip could be an issue. Who knows? Like, there's a lot of questions there, but let's just assume it's really nothing that you're doing or not doing. So it will continue to cycle, and actually it will continue to get worse because he is aging, and he's not a robot. And it doesn't matter how perfectly he thinks he can get his hormones balanced, there will be times where our bodies just don't work the way that we intend.
Right.
And unfortunately, if he doesn't have a relationship with you where y'all can talk it out and laugh about it, or say, hey, let's go do something else, or whip out that toy, let's use a dildo instead. And he's like, okay, let's do it. If y'all don't have that kind of conversation, it will literally go from hot to cold, and eventually there will be less kissing, less touching, less foreplay, because, well, it doesn't go where we want it to.
Right.
Now, I would also recommend trying different things. I know that you said you're a little bit of a prude. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but trying different things that don't require his penis to penetrate you. Again, just kind of to open up the horizon and say like, hey, here's some different things that we can try for when your erection isn't there.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm always telling couples to start including lubricant into their kind of repertoire, because it doesn't matter. Again, a lot of men and women think that the amount of lubrication that you have is equal to the amount of arousal and desire you have for your partner. We're not robots. That's not the way that it works. It could be anything from what's going on in the weather to what's stressing you out, what did you eat, what medications or vitamins did you, I mean, there's so many reasons. And of course, naturally through aging, that can happen too. So I tell people from the very beginning, start using a lubrication so you don't ever have to question, is it going to feel better? Am I going to be able to lubricate enough? And we as women are very fortunate that we don't have to have the pressure of sustaining an erection for intercourse.
Right.
And that we can have lubrication if things are a little bit more dry or more uncomfortable. We can use lubrication that really can enhance the experience. And so I would say I'm so glad that you haven't ever said anything super mean or harsh.
No.
And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But I'm
like genuinely concerned. Like I'm genuinely concerned.
I would tell him like that.
I kind of, like I said, he'll just like get up, like in the middle of like our lovemaking session. He'll just get up, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, where are you going? Because and so he'll go to the restroom, and then he'll come back, and I'm like, oh, honey, is everything okay? Like, what happened? And he'll just say, oh, I'm not ready yet. And again, this is after there's a possibility that we have already started having penetration and sex and everything. And then he'll stop. And then when he comes back, it's like for him to get hard again, it's like it just doesn't.
So this is the other thing about when because I'm going to put it out there into the when y'all start talking about this more openly, you can start talking about and brainstorming what are some positions that might help your circulation more. What are activities that we can do that you think are more stimulating to your brain? Is there an order that maybe we need to switch things up that works better for you? It could be that y'all decide, in order for him to be able to have his orgasm and penetrate you to orgasm, that maybe you do rely on lubrication to begin with for him, and then you build up, and then maybe have stimulation with the vibrator, or maybe even with his hands or with his mouth after. Some people will say, you know what, let's start with nothing happening on you and everything happening on me as the woman, so that we can get to a similar place, and we can start penetration when I'm almost at my peak, and you are just now getting started. So sometimes timing can help, but none of these things will really end up happening, at least not smoothly and comfortably, without talking about it.
I mean, I feel like obviously I'm the one that will start the conversation. And I don't want to say it's because he doesn't care, but I feel like it's probably because maybe he's embarrassed about it, or he just, and so I keep asking him, like, when I ask him, did I do anything wrong? He'll say no. And then I'm like, what can I do? And he'll just say,
he may not know.
Yeah. But do I still need lubricant if I'm naturally lubricated? Do you think I should still use lubricant, or?
So it
because on my side,
because it could be that it's too much. There's also that where,
okay,
you know how you were saying when he touches you a certain way, you're kind of numb.
Mhm.
Sometimes there isn't enough friction for him, especially if he's been, if he's used to his hand or a death grip or not. Um, it could be um, that could be something that's going on. Is it could be that there's too much lubrication, and then it's just a matter of maybe wiping a little bit.
Oh,
But the reason that I said maybe we're using lubricant early on for you is if y'all decide that his penetration is going to happen as soon
okay,
as he gets his erection.
okay.
Because here's the other part about it. If he's like a lot of men who are very turned on by their partners,
Mhm.
by the time you're turned on, even if that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes in, he has been turned on to the max for a long time.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
So his engine has been revved.
Right.
So I'm thinking it's possible. And again, these are just things that you can try. I don't
That's
know
fine.
what's
I
going to
feel
work
like
for
that
you.
sounds really, really accurate because I feel like he could be hard for, like I said, for a long time, and then after he goes down on me, and then I'm like, okay, now we can now you can penetrate. He's like, oh, like I'm done. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
And I hope I was able to give you some food for thought at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is a very common issue, and I feel like so many men don't recognize that their humanity. And
Mhm.
I'm so glad that he has a partner like you who's very interested, very concerned,
Mhm.
and very willing to talk about it. And hopefully, through bringing up some of these things to him, you'll get some more insight. At the very least,
Yeah.
you'll start to kind of understand, like, what, because right now it just seems like it's like there's a door, but you don't know
Yeah.
what's behind the door.
Right.
He's back there, but you don't know
Yeah.
what's back there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad it resonated with you. I'm excited to hear how things are hopefully different in the next few months, but I really appreciate you reaching out, and whether he knows it or not, he appreciates it as well. So thank you so much, and I'm so glad that you were brave enough to send that email, so I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like an opportunity to ask me your relationship and intimacy related questions, DM the letters AMA for Ask Me Anything to Dr. Viviana, that's DoctorViviana, on Instagram, and I'll send you the link to submit your question.